I welcome everyone in today's session about the comprehensive guide for writing the research articles. Comprehensive guide for writing the research articles. Throughout this session, we will go through very good items such as, let's say, we'll begin with how to identify the research problem. What is the role of the literature review in writing the review paper or maybe the research paper? We have a standalone section of literature review. How to plan and execute the research. What is the entire writing process? How to identify that what would be the scope of the paper. So we have to identify what kind of journals and conference will you select? How to build the first draft of a research paper? How to draft titles, authors, affiliations, and how to decide the author's order. Which author goes to which place, right? First author, second author, and so on. Drafting the abstract, introduction, and literature review. How to build the contribution section of the proposed model and how to draft the methodologies of the research paper. Results and analytical discussions, because that would be the crucial part of reporting. Finally, conclude the paper and decide the future scope. At the end, references and acknowledgement, what should be the content of them. We'll look at the characteristics of a dull research paper so that we can understand what kind of errors or mistakes we are committing and why our paper is getting rejected. How to revise the first draft. Once we have written, how to revise that. Submission process to a conference and journal. How to deal with the major and minor revisions. And what is the process to respond to the reviewers. And what if our paper is rejected? What should we do after that rejection? So that was the whole outline of today's topic or today's talk. Very first, in the beginning, you have to ask a question. Is it worth of writing a research paper to ourselves? And then we have to see, is my defined problem statement or problem on which I'm working, is it novel? Can we think something that solves the fundamental problem and identify the unoccupied slot for the publications? Identified the unoccupied slot for the publication. If, let's say, there are too many papers already published, if I have decided one problem statement, and if there are too many papers already published, then it would be difficult for me to publish. Then it would be really difficult for me to publish, right? How to overcome that problem? Right? So the idea is, we have to identify some sort of missing points or shortcomings on the existing published works. And then we can propose a research gap, overcoming these limitations in the existing literature. Or you can think something absolutely out of the box, which is non-existing, and then you can propose that and start working on it. Never start unless we have a clarity on these questions. Rethink, plan well before even you start your research work. Because generally it will take around, let's say, 1 year of work. 1 work year. And after a year, we will come to know that that slot is occupied and there is no publications coming out. And we may be forced to change the problem statement, which should not happen. In order to avoid that situation, keep reading, keep rethinking, and in order to avoid that problem, keep reading, keep rethinking, and plan well, even if you start it early in the time, right? So now, identifying a particular research problem is extremely important. It should be something novel. It should be something novel. The originality and the novelty is the prime factor. Work must be original rather than incremental. If we keep doing the incremental work, we may not be able to publish a good paper in Q1 journals. Therefore, it must be original. It must be long lasting also, and it should create an impact. Start early and beat the competition, right? Start early and beat the competition. This is competition. Start early and beat the competition, because there will be too many people working in that. And if we do not maintain the pace, we may be, that slot can be occupied by some others, and then they'll start publishing. If you're late, do not worry. Find something else which is less crowded and start working with that, which has the potential for publishing for next 5 years. Research problem statement is extremely important. Research problem statement is extremely important. It should be focused and specific. The problem statement should be focused and specific, and it must be focusing on the principal research problem. Be specific as much as you can. The objectives would be, let's say, have a clear goal, one goal or maximum 2 goals, and maybe 5 to 6 objectives, and the outcomes that you want to accomplish in the research paper. Ideally, generally, we'll have 3 to 5 objectives in the research paper, which is linked with that particular goal. How to identify a potential research problem statement? How to identify a potential research problem statement? First question you should ask is, have I answered the main question which is needed in that particular field? Does my research problem statement pass the so what test? Let's see, if I'm working on something, so what? How is it creating an impact? Does my research problem statement pass the how and why test? Does my research problem statement pass the how and why test? What would be the impact of my research? So this is called research with an impact. Research with an impact. What would be the impact of my research? How would it be useful for the society? What would be the size of my research? Sometimes we do this much of smaller work, which is not that much of complex or creating a larger impact. Then it may not be published in a Q1 journal article or a good journal article. Therefore, the problem statement should be novel, and it should be targeting a grand problem and should be complex. Does it address a principal problem and solve it for too many people, right? It should help the society, or maybe it should have a larger impact at a larger scale. After you address all these questions, the next important phase is planning. The next important phase is planning. We have to plan well. We have to plan well. This planning is crucial for performing the research and publishing in high impact journals or high impact platforms, such as, let's say, big conferences or big journal publishers. It involves deep thinking about the research problem, what we have decided, and how to execute that research that we have to plan nicely, accomplishing that goal and objectives, what we are targeting. Accomplishing the goal and objectives, what we are targeting. And based on that, the structure of the paper would be decided. Identify the topic or a problem statement. Identify the topic or a problem statement that matches the scope of our assignment. That matches with the scope of our assignment. That means you discuss with your supervisor and check what is being needed, and accordingly you decide what is the scope. What is the scope? How much time is needed? How much time is needed to plan, right? To plan for performing the research, writing and revision, right? For performing the research, writing and revision, how much time is needed? So you plan when. Generally, we should be able to publish or communicate one research article in 1 year. It generally takes 6 months of work, then followed by 3 months of writing, 3 months of revision. So that's how 12 months is sufficient for one article. Sometimes during our first year of PhD, it may go to the coursework and reading about the literature. From second year onwards, we can attend that timeline. Explore and study the relevant sources. Keep reading. Explore and study the relevant sources. Keep reading. And understand the expectations. Understand the expectations of the publishers. What they are expecting in the research paper. What kind of quality standard they are expecting. What kind of problem statement they are expecting. Understand the expectation of your supervisor, that what is he expecting. Understand your limitations and strengths and accordingly frame the problem statement so that we will be successful. Discuss with your supervisor and understand what they are expecting. Take a closer look about all the instructions which have been given by your supervisor or publishers, right? Look at some demo sample papers and align all your activities in that direction. Such as, let's say, if I want to publish one journal article in one of the good transaction, IEEE transaction, then I should take a look at 3 model papers, and then I have to align my entire work to achieve that quality standard, what they are expecting. So go through that nicely. Identify the target journals and conferences first. Rather than doing the work first and then identifying which journal is suitable or which conference is suitable, it's always advisable to fix the target of a journal and conference first. Let's say, for an example, you want to publish in one of the Q1 journal and the best conference. Right? Now, look at some of the papers which are published in this particular journal. Decide 3 model papers. And try to align your entire work in that specific direction. So that you can, even sometimes what happens, we keep doing the work and it doesn't come to that much of great quality standard. And then we end up putting it in maybe Q3 and Q4 journal. And then what happens that, sometimes that journal get out of the list of Q1 and maybe Q2 and Q3. So then let's say if we are in a Q4, it goes out of the list, then it goes totally in a junk journal. So it's better to have an idea about what kind of platform I want to publish. Understand the expected level of research quality and the complexity quality standard which they are expecting in that particular journal, right? And then you keep reading those kind of journals only, rather than reading other low quality articles. Perform the research activities matching the expected quality standard. Ensure we match their expectations. Ask some questions that what would be the deadline. Let's say you give a deadline. Generally, I give a deadline 1 year for one paper. 1 year for one paper, right? So you can say 1 year for one paper, or maybe if you are an advanced researcher, you can say 6 months. Or look at what is your goal, right? Let's say you want to publish 3 papers in your PhD, then scale it up accordingly. What topics that you want to write about, ensure that the problem statements are linked one after another and they are not discrete. Once you have done this, the next important part is the literature review. Once you have done that, The next important part is the literature review. In the literature review, read it carefully, because do not get tempted with any of the article and start reading immediately, because that will kill your time. These days, there are too many good tools are available. Let's say such as SciSpace is a good tool for a literature review. We will cover that. SciSpace later we'll cover on some other day. So when you have that, you gather the papers using this tool, right? And using this tool, you can have a scheming and filter out the most relevant articles. This tool is really good. Otherwise, you can do it manually also, but it takes time. Read about the abstracts, title, heading and subheadings. Do not read the entire paper in the scheming process. It will kill the time. First, filter the target papers which you want to read, and then read the few relevant papers thoroughly. Let's say out of these 100 papers, we have filtered out 10 papers. Read it with a great focus. And here you can do the scheming part. That will save your time and gives you a better understanding on some specific target problem. Read the introduction and conclusion. That gives you some sort of background. Look at the charts, tables, not that much of in a deeper way in the beginning. Just scheme that first. In the second round, read everything nicely. Read the references. Sometimes we see if the references are good, which means the paper is really good, because he or she is referring to the great journal articles, which means the quality of the work is maintained. Scheme the body and read relevant articles. Read relevant information. Scheme the body of the paper and read relevant information. Once that is done, implementation starts. Explore the literature around your research problem which you have decided. Okay, explore the literature which you have around the literature problem. Explore the literature around the research problem which you have decided. Read journals and conference papers, books. I would say read best journal papers, maybe Q1. That will give your mind a challenge. Read other reliable sources such as white papers or maybe some sort of keynote speakers, lectures you can attend. Identify the unexplored area where there is a gap. Once that research gap is identified, how to identify the research gap? You can use the SciSpace tool. It will help you to identify the research gap. We'll cover that on some other day. Highlight how are we going to contribute to bridge that research gap. Just 1 minute break. That's okay. What new developments might be required to update that particular field? And in that direction, you can start deciding your problem statement. Take the important notes when you read and ask the questions to yourself and try to find out the answers through the literature when you're reading. Collect the broader picture and narrow down the focus to the specific problem. So you can read wider and then slowly you can condense your viewpoint and then come down. Digest the earlier research which will help us to formulate our argument. If I'm reading continuously, I should be able to understand and I should be able to work better. During the research, retain the notes of all the sources because it will help you to cite and avoid the plagiarism. Once that is done, let's take a look at the research paper writing process or writing phase. The first phase of the writing research paper, let's say assume that your work is done, you start structuring your literature, you start structuring your research article. Decide an impactful title, then put all the affiliations of the author, which author belongs to which organization. We do not write like assistant professor, associate professor, professor in the author's affiliations, right? We just write the name, organization and email ID, maybe along with the city's name, or maybe that comes in the organization's list. Then you write an abstract. It should be impactful. We'll see how to write it. Then begin with the main body. The main body consists of the introduction, literature survey. Then what are your contributions? What kind of methodology that you worked on to solve that your principal problem statement? What are the results that you have found out? Discuss the results nicely. Provide the conclusion, future scope, and end it with the references. There are two kinds of users. One is the Word users. So you can use Microsoft Word, which is absolutely fine. But that is time consuming. It looks very easy and user friendly at the beginning. It looks very easy and user friendly in the beginning. But when you have a lot of references, auto formatting, tables, figures, then the spacing, placements, citing is becoming difficult in the Word. That's why people use overleaf based LaTeX platform. That is really good. You can think about using overleaf based LaTeX platform, which will cover on some of the other day, and then you can draft your research articles. There are certain AI tools which we use for research, such as, let's say, if you want to do brainstorming and the research questions, about the research questions, then what you can use any of these large language models, such as, let's say, ChatGPT, Gemini AI, Google Studio AI, Claude AI. You can use all of them. If you want to do, let's say, literature review and something, you can use them, or you can use either of them. Let's say Semantic Scholars, SciSpace, Chat PDF, Research Rabbit, Elicit, right? Those are used for, let's say, literature review and really good. When you want to draft your initial text and you want to rephrase it legitimately, you can use it. Have a authenticated usage, such as, let's say, you are not generating everything by AI, but you are taking the help in rewriting. You can use any of these large language models which we discussed. Or this is not helping in writing because this is mainly focused on literature review part. You can use Grammarly or Jenny AI, PaperPal for rewriting part, right? This is only for plagiarism checking and AI score. So that will come at the end. Refining the arguments, editing further, do the brainstorming. You can use any of these large language models, or this will also help you to understand the literature and review it nicely. Right? This will also help you, right? Analyzing and extractions of the documents. These two first you will help you on that. Maintaining the academic integrity, which means the plagiarism part will come here. The plagiarism. And AI score, right? So this Turnitin is really good. There are many free tools available. You can decide, but we use this. So this will help you to kill down the plagiarism, as well as it indicates the AI score also. So you can work accordingly. Generally, the percentage what we say is less than maybe 15 or 20%, up to you. Right? Up to you and your platform where you are publishing. Both of them could be less than 15 to 20%. Characteristics of a research article. Let's understand what kind of qualities a research article should have. A research paper is a piece of writing that attempts to present the focused solutions to a specific research problem. It should be focused. We cannot have a mixture of everything, that 10% of this, 10% of that, 10% of so on. We have to consolidate our brain on a specific research problem, go much more deeper into that. Center the research paper around the problem statement, what we have decided. Center the research paper around the problem statement, what we have decided. In-depth study has to be provided, not at a surface. In-depth study has to be provided around the problem statement. And it must be novel and innovative. In the support of the problem statement, a variety of sources have to be cited. Generally, a research paper will have around 50 papers. Generally, a research paper will have around 50 papers cited, right? 50 papers cited. 50 papers. It can go 50 to 100. I'm just giving you one particular number of a journal article. If it's a conference, then it would be around, let's say, 15 to 20 articles cited. Have an in-depth writing, go much more deeper, because that is what required, and ensure that the planning is made in a detail and sizable for a sizable research contributions. Let's say if we haven't planned well, we'll not be able to understand the expected quality standard and will not be able to go much more deeper. That's why it is important to have detailed research planning and execute that. Identify the scope of the paper. If we deviate too much, we are not able to focus and paper may not be selected for a publication. Scope. Stay around your principal problem statement. Be focused. Stay around your principal problem statement and be focused. Specific methodologies and the solutions that you want to address the problem statement. Specific methodologies and the solutions that you want to address a particular problem statement. Work on that and develop the methodologies. Avoid fitting too much into one paper. Do not fit everything into one article, right? Just be focused, be specific. Remember, when we mix too many things, those kind of papers do not get selected in Q1 journals. Divide the content into multiple papers. If you think that could be an extension of this current work, put it as a second article. Don't put everything in one. When writing, maintain the expected quality standard of the work which is expected. Maintain the size, it shouldn't be very much smaller, and maintain the complexity also. Enhance the English, right? This is not so difficult. This is not so difficult. You can use any of these AI tools and improve it. And what you can do is you can use the advanced vocabulary. You can use maybe Grammarly or something like that, right? You can use Grammarly. There are many tools available. Grammarly, WordTune, Quillbolt, many tools. There are many tools available. Some of the people, they use any of these generative pre-trained transformers for rewriting the text. ChatGPT or Gemini AI or Google Studio AI. They ask it to rewrite and paraphrase. So look if that is helpful, but ensure that you are adding the human value and you are not losing your critical thinking capability when using those AI tools. After that, select your journal and conference wisely. Generally, I do that in the first. I try to identify a target set of journals. Let's say these 5 journals where we want to publish. And then we read accordingly, work accordingly, match that quality standard. Because if we do not do that, we provide the lower quality standards work. And that publisher may not be interested in publishing those kind of articles. That's why it is important that I decided first. Similarly for the conference. Conference has different requirements, such as, let's say, budget requirement, how much funding is needed for a conference, a place or location, or the reputation of a conference, right? So you can decide budget. This could be conferences. You can decide how much budget we have. places, right? Place of the conference. These days, many of them are in online hybrid mode. So you can think in that way also. The reputation, or you can say prestigious conferences, right? Prestigious conferences you want to publish in that. So decide accordingly. Study the scope of the journal and conference, which must be fitting your research work. Study the scope of the journals and conference which must be fitting your work. We cannot go and send the article which is out of the scope of that journal or conference, right? So study the scope first, then you publish, then you send it for a review. Look at the published papers in that specific journal and conference and try to work in that specific direction matching with that quality standard. Maintain the expected quality standard during your work as well as when you write the paper for them. You have to look exactly like them, or maybe the work should be matching that expected quality standard. When we match that, the probability of acceptance gets higher, or they may give in a revision also. Think as the reviewers think. Go for a peer review also. So you think what reviewers can comment about this article, right? And try to solve those questions even before they send you a review, so that the number of questions will be in a review would be lesser. You can have a peer review with your co-author. You can have a peer review with your supervisor or co-author, right? You can have a peer review with your co-author, or you can discuss with your lab, other mates of your lab, researchers, right? Consequences of incorrect decision would directly result in a loss of time. I've seen the PhD students often, they struggle 2 or 3 years, and at the end they say, now either we have to drop out or find out a new problem. That should not happen with us. We should be proactive and move step by step. It could be slow progress, which is absolutely fine. Set up the direction. Keep moving consistently in that direction, one day after another day, right? Week by week, month by month, but in the same direction. Outline the structure of your research article. Outline the structure of your research article or a research paper. Organize all your thoughts. Before you commence writing the research paper, create the outline of your paper. Understand the information flow. It should be smooth and ensure that nothing is forgotten. The outline is generally a list where you plan to include the sections or subsections. You have to have a thought that, okay, what kind of sections or subsections I will include in my outline. Then you structure the outline, organizing your ideas and ensure that nothing is forgotten. And then you begin the writing. Remember, writing is a marathon and consistent practice. Generally, what you should do is, let's say, if you are a PhD student, 1 to 2 hours daily allocate for writing. 1 to 2 hours daily allocate for your writing. The more you write, more you will be able to think deeper. So you keep doing that again and again, right? Now, you are ready to start writing your research paper. We have planned, we have executed, now we are writing. Many of the researchers, what they do is generally they start with the main body first because it's easy. Let's say whatever the work I have done, I'll start writing that first, and once the main body's first draft is written, I can go ahead with abstract and introduction and conclusion later, and that would be a good strategy. Because sometimes we get tempted, we start writing the abstract, introduction, and then we get stuck into that for months, which should not happen, because when we write the main body, we'll have a better clarity for abstract, introduction and conclusion. Sometimes we feel lazy writing the main body and we start this, we think that it's very fascinating, and then we get trapped into that, and then we think that we are busy, but that will kill the time, right? So we have to just overcome the psychological issue and then focus on the main thing first. Whatever the work has been done, focus on that, and these things will align automatically. Also consider the word count and page limit. Check how many pages are needed, right? So generally, mostly, let's say a journal has a page limit of 10 pages. And if you write, let's say 15 pages, so what happens, each page, one page, will cost you around $200, something like that. So 5 pages will cost you around $1,000, which is a huge amount. So ensure that you follow the page limit. And how much do you want to cover? See, be focused. Do not cover everything in that one article. Do not put everything. You can have multiple papers and publish that work across multiple articles, right? Transform, when you are writing a first draft, of your research paper, transform your ideas into the discussions and keep writing. At this point of time, what we are doing is our preliminary ideas, we are converting them into the arguments and discussions, and they need not to be perfect. They need not to be perfectly formulated because it's the first attempt. Write it down, later you can perfect it, right? So maintain the forward momentum when you're writing, just let it go. Do not think that there could be mistakes. What am I doing? Right? No one is going to see you because that's within your brain. Unless you show it to someone else, no one is going to see and comment. So that's up to you, right? And allow yourself to make mistakes, right? Perfect it later, because once your draft is written, your 40 to 50% job is done. You can have rigorous rewriting phase later. Don't get too much stuck on any of the difficulty that you encounter. You can end up losing your momentum. When you get stuck, you lose your momentum, and that sometimes it's better to go with the momentum and complete rather than thinking too much or doing the overthinking. Express yourself clearly when you're writing. Write clearly. Have a clarity about what you're writing, and that comes from the reading and listening. Write clearly and concisely. Do not be so wordy. Be flexible, right? Be flexible. Flexibility is always important. Don't be afraid of making adjustments to your planned structured outline when you write. If there are changes which you think have to be made, make them. Cite all the sources. Take a note of all the papers or literature which you have considered. Cite everything. When you copy directly, ensure that you put the quotation marks, and also if you are borrowing some information, ensure that you have paraphrased everything. Ensure that you have paraphrased everything and everything is cited. Create the list exactly as per the format which has been asked by the journal or a publisher, whoever which you are trying. Online citation generators are available. There are online citation generators. You can use them to produce the list of your references. Reading is the key factor. You keep reading, right? And read selectively. Keep reading and read selectively, so that will not waste your time. And for any research, for anything, because reading is the only food for the mind and brain that will enlarge your ideas. And then habit of reading, let's say you read through the soft copies these days, never take the print and read. Maybe you read through the tablet or maybe on the computer screen, because the hard copies you cannot carry too many with you. And when you need a particular piece of information, checking on the hard copies is really cumbersome and we lose the time. We can use the PDF chat. These days we have those AI tools and you can use chat PDF, right? You can discuss with AI engine, ask questions, solve questions. It will explain you the equations, figures, tables, everything. You can do Control F, whatever you want, highlight it and revisit later. If you're traveling for an interview, you can revisit later and discuss, right? Put it on a Google Drive, accessible anywhere. You don't have to carry the heavy burden of the books and hard copies, right? So go digital and take notes, insert them, the digital notes, highlight them, underline them, mark the source, that at least title or author's name, that this paper is coming from this particular source. So when you're citing, you will not forget. Right? Sources of help. Never hesitate to take help. This day is the sources of help, which we had that table where we listed potential AI tools. Potential AI tools. You can revisit that table. Potential AI tools. I'll write some of them. I write some of them, such as, let's say, good AI tools are available. SciSpace, Chat PDF. This will help you to read, right? For writing, you know that GPT or Gemini or those kind of tools are available. Use them, but ensure that you add the human value, and the idea should come from you. They should assist you to enhance your writing and enhance your enhance your what do you call, speed or the outcomes. Discuss with the professors, your supervisor, right, who are ready to help. Discuss with other scholars in the lab if there are any, right? Follow the social media research groups, such as, let's say, some of the research labs, they have the social media research groups. Follow them. There are Q&A portals online where you can post the queries. These days, I think this is really easy. Finding the answer to the questions is really easy. You can use any of the AI tools that will give you some sort of preliminary answer to your question, and then you can go much more deeper and read manually, discuss with people, discuss with your supervisor, other researchers, and you do that. If you're using, let's say, hardware or software, suppose, then you frequently call or write an email or raise a ticket to them. Because if, let's say, you are facing a hardware issue, don't struggle. Just write an email or raise a ticket, solve that hardware issue at the earliest, because otherwise you'll lose months in that. Because otherwise you will lose months in that. You can have help of writing tutors. Some of the publishers, they have, such as, let's say, Elsevier, they help in improving the English for the authors. Content tutors, model research papers. I like it most. I decide some model research papers, and then I give it to my scholar, or I'll keep it to myself. And then I say, I have to be attending, I have to try for this quality standard of work. You can look at some motivational resources also. Subscribe to Google Scholar of other researchers, right? Read the profile of other researchers. I read it because that helps me to keep myself updated about what other people are doing in the field, as well as I get the motivation from them. If I am at a lower quality standard, I can learn from the others, and then I can take corrective measures in my action. You can follow them on Google Scholar, ResearchGate. There are multiple platforms available that keeps you updated. So maybe Instagram can be replaced with Google Scholar or LinkedIn. You can have that kind of replacement, and limit your time on Reels and somewhere else. Begin with the title. The less is more. The list is better. Title must reflect your entire work. It must be concise and impactful. It should be concise and impactful. The precise length is around 6 to 12 words. Such as, let's say, for an example, this is a title: Machine Learning Oriented Dynamic Cost Factors Based Routing in the Communication Network. So what it says, what is the target platform is the communication network, and what are we applying is the machine learning. And what we are doing is the routing algorithms. So that expresses entire work. So let's say if there is a review paper, you can say recent progress in the surface plasmon resonance based sensors, a comprehensive review. So it says it's a review article on what? SPR, right? So SPR. So clearly, directly you can see that I'm working on that particular area. So title is the most important part. Authors and their affiliations. First author will be always first, and then there would be the co-authors subsequently. This is called a first author. This is a first author. And this is a co-author. These are the co-authors. These two are the co-authors. right? In that we never write professor, doctor, right? Here we don't write them. It's okay if we want to give the respect to the person, you can go and give the respect face to face, which is okay. But when you are writing the paper, we don't write them. We just write the name, followed by, let's say there is an affiliation. You can write an affiliation, which institute they belong to, right? Whichever the institution they belong to. So affiliation, in that you write that. If there is a membership of membership information, such as let's say senior IEEE member or senior member, one good membership, you can say that senior member. And the formatting must be as per the publisher. Could be IEEE, Elsevier, Wiley, Hindwai. It's up to you, your field, right? It could be anything. Abstract, what it should contain. Abstract should provide a complete projection of the entire work, right? The comprehensive overview of your research. What are the contributions that you are including, right? The unique aspects of your innovations which you are presenting, that should be there. Subsequently, it should discuss little bit about the methods, techniques, or the work which you have done and what kind of results you have accomplished. Maybe a pinnacle point of your result along with the numbers you can discuss. Then you have a discussion, the interpretation and the analysis of the results. Discuss the results with numbers. Avoid discussing the general trends. Discuss the results with quantitative. So that should be a qualitative plus quantitative discussion. It should be a mixed method of explanation. And then whatever is the final result, that just you put it in a few or one sentence, that should be your abstract, and it should be crisp and impactful. That should be a limit. Let's say 300 words max. It depends on that particular journal platform or a conference platform. Decide accordingly. Begin with the introduction. What is your article about? Write about that. A short story to introduce people. Introduce your research problem and what are the key ideas that you are presenting in the current research article. Why is your work so important? Why is your work so important? Explain to the readers that what novel insights that you are offering and how will you make your arguments, correct? Your explanations. Brief introduction about the existing research trend. The gap which you are presenting, put it in the introduction and say this is the brief, and introduce people and say this is my research gap, which in that particular trend I found a particular gap and I'm proposing this particular problem. What are the opportunities, limitations and challenges? Explain what could be the opportunity, what were the limitations in the previous work, and what are the challenges, how we can contribute. Provide the detailed literature survey. What other researchers have contributed in the recent years? What other researchers have contributed in the recent years? Do not go and take the articles from 1950. Last 3 years articles are the best articles to put in, maybe 3 to 5 years if you want, but more number of articles should be recent, right? Highlight the identified research gaps which you have identified using any of the SciSpace tool or manual reading, and highlight that and position your idea that why your research is important to fill that bridge, fill that gap, and convince the readers or reviewers that your paper present the novel and essential research contributions, and give a quick summary about your organization of the paper, that what should be next, what is section number 2, that generally at the end of the introduction it says section number 3 presents the methodologies, section number 4 presents the simulations and results or experimental results, section number 5 provides the conclusion and future scope, section number 6 acknowledgement, section number 7 references, and close the article. So that's how it should be, a short summary, so that people will understand what has to be done. The main body of the research, have several sections and subsections, each covering the specific idea connecting with your problem statement, right? Have several sections and subsections. Make sure that the information is organized or presented in the logical order. Make sure that the information is presented in the logical order. And include all your piece of evidences, arguments, supportive research, means which supports your research. Include everything, right, in this. So these are the three major points which you should think when you are writing the main body of the article, right? Moving forward, what should be there in the main body? The system model is extremely important. The system model is extremely important. System model, generally a block diagram which represents your system. Generally a block diagram which represents the system. So that should be the first. Always have one block diagram representing your system or your flow of the work, so that people can understand easily. The easily you make other reviewers understand about your work easily, the probability of getting acceptance goes higher. If you are failed to make them understand our work, most likely they don't accept. The second is the methodologies. Outline your research methodologies, which we have used in the current studies to solve the problem statement. Then let's say you have some sort of algorithms, computer programs or flowchart, something like that, right? So present your algorithms which you have developed. If it's kind of a mathematical modeling or something like that, then you provide your mathematical models with detailed regression theorems, proofs, lemmas, whatever is suitable for you. If you have, let's say, experimental setup, if you have an experimental setup, provide that with a picture with the labels of each element on that setup, right? Don't just put a picture, because no one will understand what that picture is about. You put a tag on each equipment, that what is that equipment is about, and then you publish. Provide a detailed explanation about your research work. Provide a detailed explanation about your research work. You can use the visual aids. Such as, let's say, flowcharts, pseudocodes, figures, tables, right? Whatnot. Whatever is available, you can take the help of that. So, this is the entire structure of your main body, and these are the components that we should include in the main body of your research papers, right? So, you ensure that when you write the paper, you have everything in your article to enhance the probability of the acceptance. Acceptance. Structure of your sections and subsections. So generally follow the structured outline. Keep your writing focused around the problem statement. Do not deviate. Everything should circle around the principal problem which we have introduced. Write the impactful headings for sections and subsections. Write in such a way so that the reviewer should understand what's coming up to him. Drive him, right, smoothly, so that he will understand and his confidence goes higher in accepting your paper. A heading must concisely introduce the primary content within that section or subsection. Primary content within that section and subsection, and it should be impactful. It should be impactful because that will enable readers to recognize the direction of your content and establish the transitions smoothly, right? Establish the transitions smoothly. You can use these words such as, let's say, because, moreover, however, furthermore, firstly, secondly, on one hand, on second hand, on the other hand, on contrary, right? There are many good phrases available. You can use them. You can use Grammarly, WordTune, Quillbolt, or maybe any of the AI tool for enhancing your writing skills, right? The more you write, more you explore. Please note that if you're too much dependent on the AI tools for writing, which means you will lose your critical thinking and writing capability. So please ensure that there is a delicate balance that you maintain and avoid the excessive usage. Results and discussions, right? Use figures, tables, experimental setups, diagrams, simulation windows, snapshots, graphs, bar charts, use them. Otherwise, paper will look dull and it gets rejected. And we also lose motivation because it is getting rejected very frequently. Provide the analytical explanations. Do not discuss at a surface. Results must be discussed in the form of the numbers, right? Avoid discussing the general trends. Discuss the numbers along with the trend, qualitative plus quantitative. Provide the comparative statements. Compare with the existing studies, compare with your own study, and then you differentiate how the current piece of methodology is better compared with the previous methodologies, and these are the numbers as a proof. Provide the conclusive points of your outcome. Present, let's say, in the tabular format. The results should be in the tabular format. The charts, results, they should be well organized. Identify and present the strengths and limitations of your study. Write it clearly that these are the strengths of my study and these are the limitations of my study. If there are any implications of findings, present them. Other findings of your study, present them. If you find something else, a negative story, that also you should present. And always use the high resolution figures. People use those Python programming and nothing is visible here. Let's say very small font size. No one can read, and then they say this was generated by the program code. No. Find a way to edit it manually. You can take it in some other window, other softwares, and then you can edit the fonts manually, right? You have to overlay a manual access, and then you have to edit, right? So do that work. Otherwise, it shows that we're not serious about it. Plus, when we do that, it gives a different impression to the reviewers. Plus, it is easy to understand, so that probability goes higher. So more you work with a dedication, the chances of getting acceptance is higher. Abbreviations. This is an extremely important part. Abbreviations defined, the repeated usage of the key terms you can define as an abbreviation and you can keep reusing it. Right? It helps to save the word count, reduces the length, as well as it makes more professional. Your article will look more professional and scientific, or professional if you're from other field. If you're using, let's say, a term particularly, what do I mean by the abbreviation? Let's say if I'm using a term called mobile routing, just an example, could be anything. Then I would do abbreviations as MR. So this is my abbreviation. This is my abbreviation. MR. And now, subsequently in the text, whenever this MR mobile routing comes, I would use just MR. I'll not use anything else, right? I'll not use anything else. So, define abbreviations, reuse them. Double check that you're not defining multiple times. So, this mobile routing shouldn't be defined multiple times in the paper. Whenever it comes first time, define that, reuse it. And sometimes this has to be done separately for the abstract. So, whenever it comes first time in the abstract, define, reuse within the abstract. Done. Introduction onwards, again, if that mobile writing code comes again, you have to redefine one more time in the introduction, then reuse it. Right? That is the general practice which people follow, but follow the journal's guidelines. Sometimes they may advise otherwise also. That means, let's say that I have explained. Similarly, let's say if it comes in abstract first, define that and then reuse it. And similarly, let's say if it comes in introduction first, define that once and then reuse it, right? Just once. So you have to define 2 times in a paper. But some journals, they say that just define once in abstract and reuse it throughout the paper. In that case, do not define in introduction again, just reuse it. Whatever the guidelines that journal says, use it. Have a separate round of proofreading just to check the abbreviations, because that is really important that we understand that all abbreviations are defined once and reused. Let's say if I am using artificial intelligence, I cannot keep redefining again and again. I cannot keep redefining again and again. I have to just define once and reuse it. Just define once and reuse it. Now the conclusion. Now the conclusion. How do you draft your conclusion? Show your research contributions first. What are the major contributions? What work you have done? Highlight unique contributions of your research work which you are presenting. Give the impactful points. Do not lose it, because that's the only thing sometimes people read at the end. Emphasize the significant impact of your research findings. Emphasize the significant impact of your finding, and provide the comparative strength, how you are better than others. Provide the comparative strength, how you are better than others, right? Future scope, how your research is leading further, provide the future scope. If there are any limitations, mention them, acknowledge that there are certain limitations, and present the numerical outcomes. Discuss the numbers, right? So this is the entire blueprint for writing the conclusion. How do you write an acknowledgement? Generally, there are 4 major components: authorship, funding agencies acknowledgement, software companies or hardware companies if you are using someone's free version, or maybe someone you want to acknowledge, and the personal support if you have received from someone. So let's say, write an acknowledgement about the funding agency. If you have received the fund from the funding agency, give the grant number. Because the page charge would be covered from them. The research is funded by them. So give that. Any software company, if they have furnished a licensed version, evaluation version or a testing version of a software, and if you're using that, mention that. You say that we have used a licensed version. Later, to avoid the copyright strikes from them, you say that I have acknowledged that I have used the licensed version and I'm presenting the results. That will safeguard you from the future copyrights. Any person, if they have helped you, acknowledge their support. If let's say their involvement is sizable, how about giving an authorship? Give him a co-authorship, right? If their help is really significant and the contribution is large, give them a co-authorship, which is absolutely fine. Give them a co-authorship, which is absolutely fine. So this is the acknowledgement part, how you have to draw. References and citations. Cross-check that all figure numbers, they are referred to same number in the text. So let's say if I am writing as shown in figure number 3. Now the referral in the text must be exactly matching with the figure number given in this document. They must match. Do that same for the table number, such as let's say if I am writing as demonstrated in table number 3, it must be exactly matching with that particular table. Cross-check all the references cited. Let's say I'm citing as, let's say for an example, authors XYZ et al. Demonstrated in number in the bracket, let's say 3. That number 3 of the reference must exactly match. There shouldn't be any mismatch, right? It must be exactly matched with the listed reference. So such as let's say, follow the reference formatting exactly as per the guidelines given by the funding agency. So such as let's say this is one journal paper which is exactly formatted as per that particular journal's guidelines. Similarly, conference paper, whatever the formatting guidelines they have given, follow that without any miss. Each and every smaller thing you have to look. Where the year is placed, where the month is placed, where the page numbers are placed, right? How you write PP, which means PP dot means page to page. Page to page means let's say page 1 to page 5. Page to page. That's why it is called PP dot. Volume number, issue number, everything. VOL dot, volume number, right? Issue number, everything you have to provide. Similarly for conference, date of the place of the conference, month of the conference, right? Those things, page numbers, everything you have to provide. You have to supply. At the end, once you have written, check the plagiarism and similarity index. Generally, I prefer below 10%. You can use Turnitin is a good tool, but not limited to this. You can use any of the tool of your choice. It doesn't check the copyright infringements on the images. Okay, it just gives the plagiarism on text. So images, be careful. Let's say if your student is coming up with a fancy image and you know that he's coming up in 2 days, it's a copy. Ask him from where he got it, right? So be aware of it, because students will put some images randomly from somewhere because they are not trained, or they don't think that is an issue where it may create a copyright strike on the faculty. So be careful. Request publisher for a written license. Let's say if you want to reuse any image, request that publisher to provide you a written license. Rather, what I do is I refer to the existing images or diagrams and I develop my own diagram with my own thoughts, provisions, and then we can have my own image. Write in your own words. Cite. You want to cite that older image, you can cite that, which is absolutely fine. But take a reusage license or pay the reusage fee and before you're using in your article. The consequences is it will lead to a plagiarism. It will lead to a plagiarism, gives you a negative image. Your paper may get rejected and your degree may get delayed, right? So it's better not to do it. And if you're doing it repeatedly, sometimes there could be a penalty. Now, revision, last revision before you submit. This is extremely important and involve your supervisor or other co-authors in that, right? So what we do is, once the first draft is ready, revise it for multiple times. Before you share your manuscript with your supervisor or guide, you ensure that you have at least revised it 2 to 3 times at your own, improving. And in each revision, let's say revision 1, let's say you can say 20% improvement. Revision 2, let's say 10% of improvement in writing, right? Revision 3, enhance it 10 to 20% and try to enhance it each revision. During each revision, aim to improve and increase 10 to 15% of the quality standard. Check all the technical errors. Check any conceptual gap. Check the writing is matching, right? Check English is good. Check you are clearly expressing everything. The revision process is crucial. That will help you to arrange the entire process in a good shape before your final submission. The more you work on it, the chances of getting rejection goes lower. Does it line up with your research problem statement? Check it in final. That should not be deviated. Is there anything forgotten or missed? Include. Is the first draft written clearly? If not, what can we do to improve? Are there any confusing or ambiguous paragraphs? Cut them loose. If it is too lengthy, shrink it, make it short. Can we cut down something which is unnecessary? Cut it loose, put it in some other paper, right? If it is too short and too lesser, or you can say very small in size, or maybe work is not good, then you do additional work, increase the size, provide some solid outcomes, path-breaking outcomes, or the model. And if it doesn't match the quality standard, expected complexity standard, it should not look dull. It must not look dull. So then you need a rework, which is absolutely fine. Sometimes you write, rework, write, rework, write, rework, then you reach the final quality. Take a careful look at your first draft and find the areas for improvement and be mentally prepared to make changes and be flexible, right? Are you restructuring the initial outline? Be flexible to make any adjustments if you have to add a value. Cut down the redundant or irrelevant segments. Do not repeat the information. Do not discuss again and again the one thing. Only one matter should be discussed only once, not again and again in the research article. Revision before submission. Prioritize the most significant change first. If you have identified any flaw, target that first. Once the first draft is evaluated, start executing the transformation, whatever the identified problems that you start resolving, and then start working on that which is the most important part. Reorder the information if needed. Reformulate your arguments or explanations for a clear and more substantial organization. Present the information in a different order if needed, if it is better. Cut if you want to reduce, add if something is missing. Be flexible. Do whatever it takes to increase the quality standard. Never hesitate. Let's say if something is not working, you are trying something new and something is not working, then put it back, restore it back. That's okay. Be flexible. Be flexible. It's never ending process. It's never ending process. During editing, proofreading and peer reviews, this you can use good number of tools available. They are really good. Check all the typos, spelling errors. This is automated mostly. It doesn't take much time these days. This saves a lot of time. Check if there are any missing words, repeated words, confusing word choices, any punctuation marks are missed. This would be taken care by AI tools very easily. You can use Grammarly, WordTune, or any of your choice. Check the spaces, missing spaces, extra spaces, capitalization, formatting, referencing, right? Check have we used all the terms which are defined. If you are defining an abbreviation, you must use it. If you're not using that abbreviation, do not define it. And you have to use it consistently. You cannot define something else and use something else. All the numbers mentioned in the abstract, see, whatever the numbers we say in abstract, conclusion, and in your figure tables in the core section, they must exactly match. They must exactly match. There should not be mismatching. They must exactly match. All the citations, they must match. Whatever I'm citing, it must match with the reference list. The references must be formatted as per the guidelines given by the funding agency or given by the publisher. Check the document formatting. It must be exactly as per the guidelines given by the publisher. During the editing phase, look at the text very closely. Right? Check any grammar issues, resolve it. Grammatical issues, clearly resolve it. Clarity issues, provide clarity, write it clearly. Go through each sentence carefully. Each and every sentence, go through carefully. It should make sense to the reviewers. Firstly, it should make sense to me, and then it will make sense to the others, right? So go sentence by sentence, resolve any technical or grammatical issue, raise the standard of your English, use those tools, use advanced vocabulary, not the basic vocabulary. You can use thesaurus.com or use synonyms or ask AI tool to replace with the advanced vocab, possible. Combine smaller primitive sentences into the complex ones. Don't write small sentences. Combine them into the complex ones. Cut down the long, tedious sentences into the medium-sized sentences. Right? Clarify any technical ambiguities. Do not leave any ambiguity or confusion. Clear it. Request colleagues, supervisors to review your script. 2 people is better than 1. 2 brains are better than 1. Right? And sometimes we say English is not my native language. It's not a valid argument because they're going to reject straight. They'll say, go somewhere else. Or find someone else who has a better English. But these days, I think this is not a challenge. We can use AI tools or Grammarly, WordTune and take help for paraphrasing. Reviewers do not wish to review the papers which are not readable. Ensure that readability is good. It doesn't mean that the English readability, figures readability, tables readability, font sizes, right, structure of the information should not sound like a dull article, right? So ensure that readability is good. Poorly written articles, generally they face a rejection and then we face a loss of time. Characteristics of a dull paper. Lack of focus, it's not focused. Lack of originality, there is no novelty. Incremental work, which lacks in novelty. It's too short. There is nothing in that paper, right? There is no size. It's very lengthy. Mixture of everything. Lack of reasoning. Lack of literature survey. Lack of strong outcomes, right? Lack of impactful presentation. Presentation is not good. Figures are not clear, not size. Tables are not good. Block diagrams are not provided. Let's say the system model is not provided, right? System model would be the core model which presents your idea, is not provided. Pseudocodes are not provided. Drawings, mathematical modeling, experimental diagrams are not provided. These are the signs of a dull article. Lack of sufficient numbers in the discussions. We just discussed like a newspaper, right? So, kind of a novel, fiction novel. Lack of analytical explanations. Discussing general trends without the support of a number. We haven't provided the comparative studies with the previous works, or we are not comparing with our own works. Use of undefined abbreviations. The referral numbers, figures and table numbers are not matching. Cited reference numbers are not matching, right? So these were the characteristics of a dull article. Now, revisions and responses to the reviewer's comments. That would be the final stage. Now, let's say you have submitted the paper, you have received the reviews. Now, remember, reviewers are always right. Do not rebuttal much. When revising, try to address in line with their expectations and comments. Try to address everything if you want your paper to be accepted. Do not respond so quickly and irrationally. Take your time. Understand. If you're not able to understand the comment, go to your supervisor or other colleagues or co-authors. Try to understand what they are asking. Understand the reviewers. Understand the reviewers and revise the work. Right? And provide each and everything. Avoid too many rebuttals. 1 or 2 rebuttal is okay. Politely, you can say that in the because of the lack of available resources, we couldn't do that further. Right? So 1 or 2, but not too many. Right? Out of, let's say, 10 or 15 comments, only 1 comment you can rebuttal, 1 or 2. I try to keep it 0. Do everything what they say, because we want our paper to be published, and we are ready to do the work unless there is a physical limitation, right? Let's say now the rejection. How do you deal with the rejection? That's the final stage. If your paper is rejected, do not lose the heart. Always the first attempt, the paper generally gets rejected, because we are learning. When we write, we learn. Even if I write a paper today, maybe the first journal may reject it. Then I revise it, then put it on the next journal, it may be passing. Carefully analyze all the reviewers' comments and address them, revise them. Revise your paper, enhance the quality standard, and also take a careful and proactive look. If anything is missing, is there any flaw, right? And enhance the quality of the work. And then upload to another journal. And then if reviewers have not given any comments, find another journal and upload it. Sometimes they may not give the comment because the paper doesn't fit in the scope, and they say that this is beyond the scope, or the paper is very dull, so they'll write it politely that this is not kind of a paper which we are looking for, so reject it without any comments, which means the paper is dull, first option. Second option, the paper is not fitting in the scope. So these are the possible reasons. Right? So keep trying, never give up, right? Because it's a marathon practice. It won't come in a day or over a night. It takes 6 months, 8 months to get ramp up, and then keep doing. That's all I have for a day. Thank you very much for your time.